If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I made videos on just about every adaptation of World of Warcraft into TTRPGs. I talked about the original Warcraft 3 era Warcraft setting for 3rd edition D&D. I talked about the vanilla WoW era World of Warcraft TTRPG, which was less of a D&D setting and more of its own D20 system, heavily based on 3.5 D&D. And I even made videos about the fan-made 5th edition conversion introducing World of Warcraft classes and races into D&D. I'm pretty sure that in every one of those I said that I am surprised that with the popularity of 5th edition that they haven't done an official adaptation yet. And what do you know? They are doing it now! The news broke a couple of weeks ago, and I refrained from making videos about it immediately, partly because I already had a couple of other videos lined up to do, partly because I am doing much less Warcraft these days, mostly serving as examples for greater topics I'm analyzing. However, lately YouTube has been trying to kill the channel by just not sending impressions to people for video topics that have been successful before, so I am trying to do something a little different again, and I do want to talk about what this adaptation is doing, and it's not very good. A disclaimer here I have to add, these books have not been released yet. It's also one of the reasons why I've been refraining from talking about it too much, because nothing we heard about it yet is absolutely certain. I don't think the things we did hear about are going to change at this point, because I'm pretty sure everything is pretty set at this point, but it is a fair argument to say don't judge it yet because you haven't fully seen the product, so this is the disclaimer. Everything we talk about here is subject to change. But if it doesn't, it's not good. My biggest point of contention is how this book deals with World of Warcraft classes. WoW is known for its very specific class set, which is heavily tied into the actual setting. Classes like shamans and death knights and demon hunters and the non-playable but lore important tinkers really give the setting its unique feeling. It shows you how Warcraft is different from your typical basic fantasy setting or D&D. So, what is this adaptation doing with it? This is the list of new class material being released with this book. While in short it says new rules for playing all 13 World of Warcraft classes, when you go into product details it says, actually, never mind. It has suggestions for playing all 13 World of Warcraft classes using options from Player's Handbook. So what its rules for playing Evoker will probably say will be, dare just play Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer, with maybe these new spells from this book. But it gets worse with things that are actually new. One of the less offensive things is Shadow and Discipline domains for Cleric. Now, we need to clear one thing up. D&D Cleric and WoW Priest are not the same thing. Both are holy casters, yes, but the Cleric is much more offensive, much more melee-oriented, with heavier armor and weapons. If all these subclasses do is give the D&D Cleric some new WoW spells, it will not play like a WoW Priest. It will play like a D&D Cleric, with some new spells. The D&D Cleric is much more like the WoW Shaman, and we'll get back to that. Trust me. Then you see the Demon Hunter has been relegated to a Ranger subclass. I mean, sure, they have a slightly similar fighting style, where they are both more lightly armored melee combatants, with some magic, so it's not the most egregious thing in here, but it still feels like a lot of the 5e adaptations. It robs the concepts of a lot of the flavor for the sake of just not having to add a new class. You can't have that. Oh, but now we're getting to the good stuff, by which I mean very bad stuff. Death Knight becomes Oath of the Ebon Blade Paladin subclass. Oh boy, what I do get is that sure, Death Knights and Paladins are both heavy fighters with some magic, and D&D Paladins can use darker powers. And I know that some Death Knights used to be Paladins, but it's the wrong freaking Death Knights! There were several generations of Death Knight in Warcraft, and the one that used to be Paladins was the Third War Death Knights, the Scourge Death Knights from the same time as Arthas, not the Ebon Blade. Sure, the Ebon Blade could have been Paladins, but they could also have been literally anything else, including mages. It feels like someone pulled up a wiki page about Death Knights, noticed something about how they used to be paladins, and didn't check which Death Knights, or didn't even realize there were multiple different types because they were just skimming through the wiki page, because they were tasked with making World of WarCraft D&D. Now, what really convinces me that the people designing this have never played World of Warcraft and just skimmed wiki pages or maybe like Wowhead class guides is this little thing. Path of the Elements Barbarian. This is what they have done with the WoW Shaman. WoW Shaman and D&D Barbarian literally couldn't have been further apart. Let's check at this, this simple comparison. D&D Barbarian doesn't wear armor. WoW Shaman wears male armor. D&D Cleric wears the equivalent of male armor. D&D Barbarian generally doesn't use magic. WoW Shaman uses a lot of magic, in combination with some melee. D&D Cleric uses a lot of magic, in combination with some melee. D&D Barbarian is the warrior of his society. WoW Shaman is the clergy of his society. D&D Cleric is the clergy of his society. I think you can see my point. Barbarian is quite possibly the literal worst thing they could do with the Shaman. The Shaman screams Cleric in every way. But no, someone read Tribal or maybe Rage on a wiki page and went, the Barbarian. And now, as with the disclaimer, this could all be wrong. None of this actually happens. I feel like they'd probably be liable for false advertisement then, but I'm not a lawyer and it would not be my problem. But if it is true, it shows two things. That the people designing this have no idea about the setting, and it further proves how panically afraid 5th edition is of introducing new classes. Demon Hunters or Death Knights have to be new classes. They are very different and very unique flavors specific to World of Warcraft. And if WotC told them, you can't do new classes, then don't do it. Everybody would tell you, new D&D is better than bad D&D. No WoW D&D is better than bad WoW D&D. So if you can't do it well, just don't do it. It's as simple as that. So to be constructive, what would I do? And as the main example, I will bring up the fan-made 5th edition WoW conversion, which isn't perfect. It had, first thing that comes to my mind is the troll issue, how they messed up the trolls, but it wasn't perfect. But it took actual care to make the actual WoW classes work with the D&D system. It frankly boggles the mind that this fan-made conversion did things so much better than what we're seeing here. What would I do to not have to come up with entirely new classes is shuffle around some mechanics. Take some cleric features and cleric mechanics and give them to a non-armor divine caster called the Priest. Take some other cleric features, some elemental flavor, and keep it on a mostly cleric-like shaman. And then add a ton of new subclasses based on WoW specializations and hero talents. Make the new subclasses be things like Blood Death Knight, Retribution Paladin, Stormbringer Shaman, Void Weaver Priest from the hero talents from Warden. Does this sound like a lot of work? Yes, because adapting something so different for such a different system should be a lot of work if you want it to be good. You should be putting a lot of work into this. You can't have asset like this. Here's an even better idea for how to adapt World of Warcraft. Don't adapt it to 5th edition D&D at all. Because it's quite possibly the worst edition to adapt it to. 4th edition would have been perfect for it because while D&D fans were confused about their fighters now having quote-unquote spells, it would have made perfect sense for WoW players. But alas, the edition died too quickly, and I don't blame Blizzard for not wanting to have much to do with it when it was clearly unpopular. You could also do what the WoW RPG did, have your own D20 system heavily based on 5th edition D&D, without actually being D&D. Sure, you would lose like some brand recognition, but I'm sure there are ways to mitigate that. All of those would have been better adaptations than what this is shaping up to be. I'm sure that plenty of people will buy it and will play it because most people are just blind consumers with no consideration for the quality or the flavor of the setting. But unless these things change, this will not be World of Warcraft D&D. This will be D&D with some light sprinkling of WoW flavor in all the wrong places. Considering what we're hearing about this, you know what I'm terrified about? Their announced upcoming Star Wars products for 5th edition D&D. Like, if they made WoW shamans into barbarians, how badly are they going to butcher Star Wars? Are they going to make Jedi a subclass for warlocks? What are Sith going to be, a barbarian subclass too? What are the lightsabers going to do, a D8 slashing plus D4 fire damage, like it's just a sword on fire? Because, you know, balance, what if somebody brings their purple Dragon Knight Eladrin to the same table? Considering they're removing slavery from Dark Sun, I am really giving up on WotC. The Dark Sun thing is like really a whole other topic that could be like its own other video that also nobody would watch. Now, I don't like to make videos that are just rants anymore, but YouTube decided to just not give me any views anyways, and this is a topic people are talking about, which I care about, which I think more people do need to hear about. So yeah, I decided to do this for this week. Maybe we'll be back next week with some deep cultural analysis of undead and necromancy in fantasy, unless YouTube decides to just give me completely 0 views now to make sure I don't accidentally get paid. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you are more considerate about the things you pay the corporations for, so we don't get inundated with just nostalgia slop that doesn't even make sense with the setting they're nostalgic for. If you did enjoy my videos, don't forget to like and subscribe, or maybe join these fine channel members for early access to videos. Meanwhile, I sure do hope to see you next time.